What if the NBA's smartest new move didn't come from a blockbuster trade or a college phenom, but from a 19-year-old in China hardly anyone saw coming? Yang Hansen, a 7'1" center with rare vision and feel for the game, is quietly turning the league on its head before even playing a game. On June 26, 2005, in the industrial city of Zibo, Shandong province, a lanky boy was born who would one day baffle the NBA. Yang Hansen's first love wasn't fame, highlight reels, or flashy sneakers. It was simply the feel of a basketball in his hands. By the time most kids his age were still figuring out how to dribble, Yang was already outthinking opponents on the court. He sharpened those instincts at the Zibo Sports School, a local program known more for grit than glamour. Then, around 2020, he joined the youth system of the Qingdao Eagles, a move that quietly set the stage for what was to come. It didn't take long for his talent to turn into results. Yang led his team to back-to-back U17 national championships in 2021 and 2022, collecting personal accolades along the way. Best defender in 2021 and MVP in 2022. But here's the question: how does a teenager in China, with no viral mixtapes and no NCAA headlines, go from local prodigy to a player the NBA couldn't ignore? The answer began in 2023 when Yang made his professional debut for the Qingdao Eagles in the Chinese Basketball Association. His rookie season was a statement, winning both Rookie of the Year and Defensive Player of the Year. Most players would fade after a season like that. Yang didn't. He came back in 2024 to 2025 to repeat those honors, earn consecutive All-Star nods, and cement his place as one of the CBA's brightest young stars. From Zibo's modest courts to dominating China's top league, Yang Hansen's rise wasn't loud, it was calculated. And that's exactly why it caught the NBA off guard. By the time Yang Hansen had 96 CBA games under his belt, the numbers painted part of the picture. 15.8 points, 10.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and 2.4 blocks per game. But raw stats don't capture the way he plays. Yang isn't the kind of big man who just plants himself in the paint and waits for the ball. He's a conductor, orchestrating plays, in real time, reading defenses like an open book. What stunned NBA scouts wasn't just the production, it was how he got there. For a 7'1" center, Yang moves with the brain of a point guard. His passing angles feel improvised yet precise, threading the ball through gaps most players wouldn't dare to attempt. And when the opportunity arises, he'll step beyond the arc and knock down a three, just to remind defenders they can't leave him alone. Coach Chauncey Billups saw it firsthand during pre-draft workouts and came away impressed, noting his unique feel for the game. That's not a throwaway compliment. This is a coach who's seen all-stars, champions, and veterans come through his practices, yet a 19-year-old from China left the biggest impression. So here's the question: how often do you find a player who can block your shot one possession, then run the offense the next? It's why some have started calling him the Chinese Jokić, a nod to Nikola Jokic's blend of vision and versatility. Others compare his presence to Yao Ming, not because their games are identical, but because Yang brings a similar combination of size, skill, and cultural impact. His game is less about overpowering opponents and more about outthinking them, whether it's anticipating a pass before it's thrown or using his body as a decoy to free a teammate. Yang Hansen plays basketball like he's always 2 moves ahead, and that's the kind of skill set that makes the NBA nervous in the best way possible. The 2025 NBA draft was rolling along as expected. Big names going early, analysts nodding in agreement, until the 16th pick. That's when Portland, via a trade with Memphis, called a name most fans had never heard: Yang Hansen. In a draft full of calculated moves, this one felt like a jolt of electricity. Many experts had projected him for the late second round, or not at all. The New York Post had him buried on mock drafts, and some insiders didn't even bother to study his film closely. So when his name came over the mic, the collective reaction was a mix of surprise, confusion, and curiosity. Yang wasn't even in the green room that night. Instead, he was sitting in the stands, just another face in the crowd, until the announcement echoed through the arena. Cameras caught him rising slowly, almost in disbelief, as he hugged his family. How often does the NBA's wildest pick come from the cheap seats? CBS analyst Matt Norlander rated the shock factor at 9.5 out of 10. One NBA executive went even further, calling it the wildest pick he'd ever seen. The Wall Street Journal labeled it one of the night's biggest surprises, and the surprise didn't stop there. Yang signed a standard first-round rookie contract, securing his place as a cornerstone for Portland's future. The contract was reported to be worth at least $9.1 million. But here's the question: was this a reckless gamble by the Blazers, or the smartest bet of the night? In hindsight, Portland's move may be remembered, not for its shock value, but for its foresight. In one unpredictable moment, Yang Hansen went from unknown prospect to the player everyone in the NBA wanted to know more about. What looked like a surprise pick to the rest of the league was anything but for Portland. Their scouting of Yang Hansen had been meticulous and quiet. No headline leaks, no public workouts designed to tip off rivals. They even traded back in the draft order, knowing they could still get him. That's not luck, that's calculated confidence. General Manager Joe Cronin called Yang a very, very unique talent with a high-end skill set and elite basketball IQ. To Cronin, Yang wasn't just a center. He was a multi-tool player who could step out and stretch the floor, all while running the offense like a guard. And when your head coach is Chauncey Billups, a former Finals MVP known for valuing smarts as much as skill, that endorsement carries extra weight. Billups had already seen enough in pre-draft workouts to believe Yang could contribute right away. The proof wasn't only in private sessions. Yang had already faced top international prospects in tournaments and held his own, sometimes dominating. At the draft combine, he didn't just survive the competition, he stood out. His poise under pressure, ability to read the game, and willingness to make the extra pass made him look less like a teenager and more like a seasoned pro. So here's the question. Was the NBA sleeping on Yang Hansen, or did Portland simply read the game better than everyone else? While other teams were distracted by flashier prospects, Portland spotted something rarer. A player whose brain works just as fast as his body, whose value isn't tied to raw athleticism alone. In a league obsessed with vertical leap and highlight dunks, Yang offered something subtler but potentially more dangerous: the ability to outthink anyone on the floor. For the Blazers, this wasn't just about drafting a player, it was about stealing a march on the entire league. And in that moment, it felt like the NBA had just been outplayed. If the NBA world was stunned on draft night, China erupted. Within hours, Yang Hansen's Summer League debut was streaming live to millions. Tencent's broadcasts of his games drew massive audiences across China, highlighting his growing popularity before he's even played in the NBA. It wasn't just basketball fans watching, it was a national moment. Tencent quickly moved to capitalize, producing a documentary series that followed Yang's journey from Shandong to the NBA. The episodes became must-watch content, blending sports, culture, and national pride. For many viewers, Yang wasn't just another rookie. He was the next chapter in China's basketball story, and that's where the business side comes in. Yang's potential isn't limited to the court. The NBA has an estimated 300 million fans in China, and Yang is uniquely positioned to connect with them in a way no current player can. In a league that understands the value of global stars, he could be both a competitive asset and a market force. But here's the question. How often does a franchise land a player who can change both the scoreboard and the stock price? On forums like Reddit, fans are already debating where he might rank in China's basketball legacy. Could he be the second best Chinese NBA player ever, right behind Yao Ming? Some think it's too soon to say. Others argue that Yang's combination of skill, smarts, and charisma gives him a real shot. What's clear is that Yang Hansen has already achieved something rare. Before even playing a regular season NBA game, he's turned himself into both a cultural icon and a global commodity. For Portland, that might be the most valuable draft pick they've ever made. For all the buzz, the NBA isn't a fairy tale, and Yang Hansen's story is still being written. Even his biggest supporters admit there's work to be done. At 7'1", he has the height, but the league's veterans will test his strength from day one. Adding muscle isn't optional, it's survival. The NBA's speed and physicality operate on a level the CBA can't fully prepare anyone for. Some scouts have already pointed out the rough edges. In Summer League, there were moments when Yang struggled against aggressive defenders, turnovers under pressure, and possessions where his lack of physicality showed. On Reddit, even fans rooting for him have voiced concern that his cerebral style could be disrupted if he can't match the league's pace and toughness. And then there's the weight of expectation. Overnight, Yang went from relative obscurity to being hailed as China's next great basketball hope. Every game he plays will be dissected by millions, from Portland to Beijing. Can a 19-year-old balance the hype with the patience needed for real development? That's the question hanging over his rookie season. If he can navigate those hurdles, the hype won't just survive, it'll grow. But if the adjustment proves too steep, the Chinese Jokić label could quickly turn from a compliment into a burden. The next chapter will determine whether Yang Hansen's rise is the beginning of a new NBA era or just a fleeting draft night surprise. The next few months will be Yang Hansen's proving ground. Summer League was the appetizer, and training camp will be the real test. Coaches will push him to adapt to the NBA's relentless pace, the constant switching on defense, and the grind of battling bodies just as tall but far stronger. Early in the season, the stat sheet will tell part of the story. Minutes played, shooting efficiency, turnover rate. But the more important clues will be in the subtle details. Does he fight harder for position in the post? Is he reading double teams faster? International windows could offer their own drama. If Yang takes the floor for China in national team duty, it'll be another chance to measure him against high-level competition and to see how he handles the spotlight when he's not just representing a franchise, but a country. So here's the question. Will we watch a rookie slowly find his footing, or a teenager fast-track himself into becoming one of the most intriguing big men in the league? Either way, Yang Hansen's journey is no longer happening in obscurity. Every possession will be watched, measured, and debated by fans in Portland, by analysts in New York, and by millions in China, who believe they're witnessing the rise of something rare. And in the NBA, where every season writes its own script, Yang's chapter is just getting started. Yang Hansen's rise isn't just a personal milestone, it's a signal flare for the future of scouting. For years, the path from the Chinese Basketball Association to the NBA has been rare and often misunderstood. Now, a 19-year-old with a skill-first approach has flipped that narrative, showing that the next great big man might not come from an NCAA powerhouse, but from halfway across the world. Will Yang's story become the blueprint for how the NBA finds its next global star, or remain a rare exception? If his career takes off, it could forever change how the world views Chinese player development. No longer would the conversation be limited to athleticism or size. It would include craft, creativity, and the kind of intelligence that translates anywhere basketball is played. And that might be his biggest legacy of all. From a teenager in Zibo, training quietly in a local sports school, to being labeled the wildest pick of the NBA draft, Yang Hansen's journey has been a masterclass in the strategic disruption. Without the hype of a blue blood college program or the headline-grabbing athletic feats of viral prospects, he's managed to step directly into the league's spotlight on his own terms. What makes him unique isn't just his 7'1" frame or the rare blend of passing, shooting, and defensive instincts. It's the way he sees the game, 2 or 3 moves ahead, like a chess grandmaster mapping the court. Portland didn't just draft a player, they drafted a mindset. And here's the question that might define his legacy. In a league that often equates success with speed and vertical leap, can a player built on timing, vision, and basketball IQ become the ultimate disruptor? If Yang Hansen's early signs are any indication, the NBA might be on the cusp of a reminder it didn't ask for but desperately needs, that sometimes the sharpest weapon isn't the fastest or the strongest, but the one that knows exactly when and where to strike.